Um, Sometimes we find unexpected things. I keep buying these kind of cheap headsets for my phone, and if you push the button to hang up the phone is the same as the button to start playing music. And so sometimes as I'm kind of getting off a call, if I hit the button too many times, if I wasn't listening to anything, the phone will just start playing something. I mean, something, it's a song that I put on the phone, but not necessarily, I don't know what's going to come. Um, and it happened earlier this week, and the song stuck with me. So we're going to start there. It's a song called Tel Aviv by Evyatar Banai, who's, I don't know if his name or his work is familiar to anyone, but he's had an interesting career. He was kind of had a very well-received debut album in 1997 and put out a number of kind of critically acclaimed albums, and then became Chozer B'Tshuva. He became religiously observant later in life, and continued to record music and continued to perform. And there's a beautiful piece, I don't even remember which newspaper published it, but Yossi Klein Halevi wrote a beautiful piece. He was at a concert in Tel Aviv, let's say in the early 2010s, when for the first time, Evyatar Banai began to play the earlier songs from when he had been secular, alongside the later songs from when he was religiously observant. And what Yossi wrote about in that piece was kind of for the first time seeing the ways in which, obviously, a religiously observant person has a very different lifestyle than a religiously secular person, and yet that the human concerns and the life struggles that were described in the earlier songs and in the later songs were the same in some sense. And that to kind of here was the work of a person, of an integral artist. And so the song that we're going to see, Tel Aviv, is from the later period, the religious period. It's from the 2013 album Yafa Kalevana. And I'm going to play the song, and then we'll have an opportunity to reflect a little bit.
שוב אני בתל אביב, דירה ריקה, יש כאן מישהו, הכל איננו, איפה את? כמה לא מפתיע, הרי אם יש משהו שראיתי בחיי, זה שאין כלום, עפים כמו פרחים לבנים ברוח. כנראה שאני עדיין לא לגמרי מאמין שהשתניתי, השינוי היה מהיר מדי וחיצוני. כנראה שאני עדיין לא לגמרי מאמין שאתה סולח, ועכשיו צריך לנשום את זה פנימה באמת, באמונה באמת. אל אשר תלכי אלך, ובאשר תליני עלי, עמך עמי ואלוהיך אלוהי, המוות יפריד ביני ובינך. כנראה שאני עדיין לא לגמרי מאמין שהשתניתי, השינוי היה מהיר מדי וחיצוני, כנראה שאני עדיין לא לגמרי מאמין שאתה סולח, ועכשיו צריך לנשום את זה פנימה באמת. כנראה שאני עדיין לא לגמרי מאמין שאתה סולח, ועכשיו צריך לנשום את זה פנימה באמת.
First thoughts, reflections, reactions? Yeah, Jenny.
When I was studying at Gratz, it's a long time ago, one of the books that I read, I keep trying to remember the name of it. I think it was To Live as a Jew, Donin, yeah. And this man, there was nothing at that time except the Orthodox view of how to do this there. And he basically said, if you're going to be observant, you have to be completely observant, or in effect, it doesn't count. And much later, I got hold of another book, neither the title nor the author of which I can remember, that said exactly the opposite. Do not try to do this all at once. You will be overwhelmed and you will give up. Pick something and make it part of yourself and your life, and then go on to the next thing. And when you get a lot further along, all of it will be part of you. And the thing that I picked up in this song is he's basically saying, I did it all very quickly and it was all outward. And that's the first thing I thought of. Maybe he tried. I mean, if this is how he feels or felt, maybe it was too much all at once.
Right, and of course we have the challenge we always have with works of art, which is not to fall into the trap of mistaking that it's necessarily autobiographical, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, even if it isn't autobiographical, it's.
Well, no, but I was having this conversation with a friend who's a rabbi elsewhere, and we were working on each other's high holiday sermons, and he was, and I said to him, I said, it's important not to mix up truth and fact, right? Which we know, because works of literature can be true without being factual.
Yes.
Right, and that's and so in the same sense, I think we could say there's certainly a true experience to which he is giving voice in this song.
Yeah, even if
he's not factually talking about himself. Mort, I'm going to come to you in one.
Rabbi?
Mort, go for it.
Okay. Now, it's interesting about this view that you must do all the commandments. You've got to do everything. And this reminds me when I was reading Adil Steinsaltz and his comments about Torah, and he met with a guy who said to him, you know, Rabbi, I hate to admit this, but on Shabbat, you know, I eat bacon. He said, do you eat bacon only on Shabbat? He said, only on Shabbat. He said, well, that's one way to celebrate Shabbat. It's not my way, but at least you're celebrating it.
Yeah, you know, I'm feeling like I'm like regretting now that I gave the biographical intro that I gave, because I think something that's just interesting to notice about the songs, and I'm going to ask you guys to have what Ricord would call a secondary naivete. He never says anything about God or religion in the song, Bonai. Right now, it's like we read it a certain way because we know that he's had this journey. But he's very deliberately ambiguous in the phrasing of the song, right? There's a change in himself that he's uncertain of, and even the language. And I love when it says "Kanireh she'ani adayin lo legamrei ma'amin." It seems that I still don't completely believe. And if you can kind of notice like the double tentativeness there, it seems that I still don't completely, right? So I partially believe, and I even am not sure. Like the kanireh, it seems there are layers of tentativeness here that he's bringing into, or that he's giving voice to. Sheila? You're muted, Sheila.
Okay. Just to the question of about God, where God is in the song, I actually thought that the one who he was searching for was God, and at one point feminine, at one point masculine, which to me revealed a certain amount of uncertainty. And I think my personal reaction to his questioning reflected, it sort of put up a mirror to the fact that even people who are committed to a religious lifestyle do question themselves, do have doubts, do struggle, and the religious lifestyle has room for doubt, has room for questioning, has room for struggle. And I would say, what is it if the struggle is human, and it's to be able to use the elements of that lifestyle to embrace the struggle.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting because there are these two paradigms of the experience of religious life, right? There's an experience of religious life that erases doubt and question, or that kind of strives towards certainty. And there's an experience of religious life that it embraces or at least sits with doubt. And it's not a clean transition or hierarchy. In other words, there are modes of more extensive religious observance that highlight doubt and that focus on the ambiguity of our experience. Just as there are modes of religious observance that try to trace out and create certainty. And yeah, and so there's a tension in religious experience, and to some extent also something about the seeker in which we can turn to religion from a place of doubt and questioning, perhaps seeking answers, and perhaps find answers and perhaps not find. Susan, did you have your hand up? But you're muted also, so we need you to unmute.
Okay. I assumed because you had given us his history and the language, that he was talking about his own religious commitment. But I also personally took it as other commitments that I have made upon reflection over the years, which I continue to doubt whether I've lived up to them. So, it's not an outsider looking in, it's because someone from the outside, but I know within my heart that it's not always 100% or close to it. So that's all, just a different take on it.
Right. So certainly we have, and I'm always quick to caution us that we should be very circumspect in our evaluation of other people's commitments. But even within ourselves, when it's our own commitment, even within ourselves, we don't always know if we can't be sure. Why are we doing the things that we're doing, and what does it mean to us? And and again, I think about his use of this kanireh, it seems, to talk about himself, right? As if as if he's observing himself, or standing outside of himself in order to make these observations, and not fully in touch with with the inner experience, or not fully able to discern what does he think about himself. That's left open. And then there's Kohelet. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts about sort of why this song, why this book, why this season.
Right.
Yeah, Jeff.
Well, I think it goes a lot back to maybe even what you talked about during high holidays for the Tana Tokef. Life is fleeting. Kohelet talks about chasing wind a lot. And in whatever our limited time may be here, if we do tefillah, tshuva, and tzedakah, whether it's giving thanks, returning to one's self, core identity, and doing deeds of righteousness, that makes it worthwhile. And we might have limited time. Chasing wind could be futility, but it could also be a metaphor for you don't have a lot, regardless how long it is. And so I think that fits in nicely with the season and keeps me thinking about some of those themes personally.
Right, yeah, so in the half of the world where our festival customs developed, this is the time when the leaves are changing and falling and the wind is picking up. And, if anyone else, Miriam and I take a short walk in the mornings early. But if anybody else was out early this morning, there's a bite in the air now. Well, Jeff's in his Sukkot, so you're probably feeling it. There's a crispness in the air. Sarah Fleischman, who I saw on here earlier, took my kids apple picking yesterday, and there's a certain season that's happening now, and it is that season that's heading toward winter. Right? A tradition has it that Kohelet, the author of this book, is none other than Melech Shlomo, King Solomon. And the tradition is that he wrote the Song of Songs, which we know it says Shir HaShirim Asher L'Shlomo. He wrote the Song of Songs when he was young and full of the passion of love. And he wrote Mishle, the book of Proverbs, kind of in his adulthood as his wisdom matured. And he writes Kohelet at the end of his life. Right, and so this is a book of changing season. And if you haven't read it, Harold Kushner has a book that I only kind of heard about secondhand through another book, but was Harold Kushner has this book called When Everything You Ever Wanted Isn't Enough. And I had bought the book out of the recommendation. I had seen it in a book that was written by a friend. And so I bought the book. I thought, on his recommendation, I should read it. What I wasn't expecting is it is, in fact, after a fashion, a commentary on Kohelet. And fascinating to kind of read Rabbi Kushner moving chapter by chapter through Kohelet and showing us what this looks like in a modern life. But this struggle to find meaning, and particularly this, there's a looking backness about Kohelet that I think I hear also in Banai's song of looking back and saying, okay, but what was all of this about? Who have I been and who am I now? That kind of questioning that opens up a kind of a richness. And so there's another passage I wanted to share with everybody, and I forgot to put the citation on here, but it comes from, if I can find it here. Does everybody see that now? Can you just show me a thumbs up? So the passage comes from Kohelet Rabbah, from the Midrash on Sefer Kohelet. I just forgot to write that on here because there was a lot of words to begin with. But pulling from this verse from the chapter that Jenny read for us earlier, Tov malo kaf nachat mimlo chofnaim amal ureut ruach. Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and a striving after wind. So Rabbi Yaakov or Rabbi Korshai said, better is a handful of quietness in the world to come than 2 hands full of toil and striving after wind in this world. Hu haya omer, he would say, meaning he would regularly say, better is 1 hour of peace of mind in the world to come than all the life of this world. And better is 1 hour of tshuva and ma'asim tovim, good deeds in this world, than all the life of the world to come. For the world to come only comes through the power of this world. I'm just going to leave this up for a second so that people who are visual learners have a chance to read and to take it in. Better is 1 hour of peace of mind in the world to come than all the life of this world, and better is 1 hour of tshuva and good deeds in this world than all the life of the world to come. For the world to come only comes through the power of this world. Sha'olam haba eino ba ela mikoach ha'olam hazeh. So I'm interested, what do you make of this, as this midrash? Gary, Emmett.
Hello, is that working?
Hi, yeah, we can hear you.
My computer doesn't like me all the time. Anyway, I think it's traditional for artists late in life to feel like Kohelet and feel like a lot of these quotes, because you get to the end of a very full life and all of a sudden you wonder, was that enough? And you think about popular song, you think about poets, anyone who's an artist that thinks in a lyrical way. This is the traditional way of looking at the world late in life. And therefore, your comment on when Solomon wrote this, though he didn't write it, makes a lot of sense.
Great, thank you. Raphael.
So my comment really is on the second poem that you showed, or the second portion, and what it brings to me is that we always tend to say, oh, it'll be better in the next world. Everything will be better. But what he is saying is that not necessarily so, that you can do a lot of things here and now, and then you could be full of it, you could be reach certain level of that sense of achievement and fulfillment, and then the next world will come. But you have done it now.
Okay, great. I'm going to pull this back up because there's a very complicated relationship between the two worlds in this midrash.
Right.
That I think Raphael is helping us to unpack a little bit. At first, commenting on the verse from Kohelet, better is a handful of quietness in the world to come than 2 hands full of toil in this world. But then we get this this kind of saying of Rabbi Yaakov Rebbe Korshai. Better is 1 hour of korat ruach, of peace of mind in the world to come, than all the life of this world. Okay, so that's one thing that says, well, the next world, 1 hour of the next world is better than all the life of this world. But then he immediately goes on to say, better is 1 hour of tshuva and good deeds in this world than all the life of the world to come, right? And so that it's, there's this question of he seems to be distinguishing between chayei olam hazeh, the life of this world, and tshuva and maasim tovim, tshuva and good deeds in this world. As if there's one hierarchy that he's setting up in which whatever things we might find enjoyment in the world as we know it, the world to come is better than that. But however good the world to come might be, the things in which we would find tshuva and maasim tovim, there are ways of engaging with the present world that are even better than the pleasures of the next world. Sheila? You still have to unmute.
I hear a connection with Natana Tokef and with the points that you were making in your sermon. I mean, despite the what may seem the meaningless and the endless toil, etc., and the emptiness of this world, there is meaning in this case in chesed, that makes life in this world sweet. It makes it better, right? So a life of good deeds in this world. I mean, he seems to want to reverse, the first statement. That's not, 1 hour peace in the world to come is worth more than this world. That doesn't sound very Jewish, really.
Well, it is. Certainly it is, though, right? I mean, we don't necessarily think about it in those terms.
I mean, but it dismisses the possibility that we can make more of this world.
I'm gonna hold that. I'm just gonna let that stand, and I'm gonna come back to it in a minute. But we're gonna hear from Terry first.
myself. I can remember, way back in the day that Rabbi Stone used to tell us, if there's a God, if you want God in your life, the way to get God in your life is to do good deeds. And that's sort of the definition of God, is you fill yourself with God when you do good deeds and you help other people. And in the context of what these sayings are, is doing good deeds now and adding that brings God into your life. That prepares you to have a good afterlife. That if you have God inside you, if you've encompassed the workings of God, you're ready to go on to the afterlife. But the key of it is really doing the good deeds. When I read that, the key to me was the importance of doing the good deeds and helping other people is what we should be doing while we're here on earth.
Well, so notice what he does. I'm gonna pop this back up on the screen again. Remember, this is all what the Gemara would say, toch kadei dibor. It's all one statement, right? Coming back to to Sheila's question about whether he's contradicting himself or contradicting anything at all. Toch kadei dibor, all in one statement, he says that the world to come, 1 hour of the world to come is better than all the life of this world. And 1 hour of tshuva in this world is better than all of the world to come. So there's a single, I'm missing in like symbolic logic terms what you would call this, but there's a single set of comparisons that he's putting in place here. It's not a contradiction at all. But he is setting this up to say, if you had the kind of the pleasures of the world on one hand, there's something about this tshuva and maasim tovim that's better than the world to come, which is already that much better than the world. Linda, you've got your hand up. I assume you're there. We don't see you, but if you want to unmute.
Okay, I'm here. Sorry, I'm a little shy. So I'm thinking about how this does tie into your sermon on Rosh Hashanah with the idea of, you were talking about the fear, of what's going on in the world, but to face life, to face the fear, but yet enjoy what we have. So tying this into what you're talking about now is, to do good deeds now may give us a better world later, but we have to enjoy the deeds now. We're not doing the deeds now just because we want the better world later. We want to enjoy what we're doing. Enjoying the deeds for now and taking that all in and soaking that in and feeling what it feels. And maybe as a byproduct, it'll be better in the other world. That's all.
Okay, that's beautiful. It's beautiful because there's something, I wasn't thinking about it in these terms until you said that. But Ray, if we come back to Kohelet, I mean, there is something about Kohelet that's very present in the moment. Where there's certainly a coldness and something of a bite to him. But there's also something about Kohelet that's very, it's very like focused in the moment of, he critiques jealousy and he critiques ambition and he's vicious in his critique of striving, what he keeps calling striving. But maybe, Linda, as I'm listening to what you're saying, right, maybe part of Kohelet's critique is that all of those things look elsewhere. And what Kohelet wants is for us to look here. Right. And so then what Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Korshai also is saying is, there are pathways of action and behavior that are available to us right now that are more valuable than whatever might be some other time. Right. And that if we are if most of us are people who are deeply troubled by uncertainty and ambiguity. And so if that's true for us, that we can resolve that uncertainty and that ambiguity by acting presently by being active and being present with what is in front of us. Ginny? You're muted, Jenny. Jenny, we're not hearing what you're saying because you're muted.
Okay.
All right, try again.
Where was I? You keep leaving out the very last bit of what the Rebbe said, that the world to come only comes through this world. You don't get it as a gift, you have to earn it. And that's why you get the apparent, the reversal. An hour in the world to come is better than this world. But in order to get there, an hour in this world had better count, you'd better be doing the right things now in order to enjoy what is coming.
Ah, beautiful. So rather than thinking about these two worlds as separate and distinct from one another, as I think we often have a tendency to do, and particularly for those of us who have a tendency to want to de-emphasize the world to come in order to emphasize the need for action in the present world, there's a tendency to distinguish, but what you're pointing out is that he's linking them. There's a dependency that he's creating in which the availability of the world to come is dependent on our use and engagement with the present world. Suzanne? You're still muted.
Better now?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the opposition
you're muted again, Suzanne.
we'll try it one more time. That better? We're getting an echo.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it's
I'll save it.
if everyone else is muted. All right, sorry. Well, so if somebody ends up at Kiddush with Suzanne, ask her what she was going to say, because I'm not sure. Looks like everyone's muted, so I'm not sure.
Rabbi Abe, tell Suzanne that possibly if she has her phone near her computer, that might be causing the reverb.
Do you have a second device with you, Suzanne? No. All right. Well, we will. We'll move on from here. I think that this is. We're going to bring it all together. This is a season of comfort and also a season of doubt. All right. We're coming off of the Yamim Noraim. We're coming off of this experience of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that raised questions in us, or it prompted us to examine the questions that perhaps we had and were not so focused on, or we were in denial of the questions. And we come through that season and we have this, this holiday of gathering, of coming together in Sukkot, of celebration communally. But we have this time of celebration at a time in which, again, in our hemisphere, the world is starting to shut down. in which, you know, animals are nesting, or they're preparing to hibernate, or they're reaching the end of their life cycle, in which the leaves are changing and the plants are retreating, and the seasons of various fruits are drawing to an end. And there are doubts and questions that can arise, and we're invited to sit with, you know, in the way that Linda was talking about, which I think was so beautiful, to be present in what's happening right now, to be present in the work that's available to us, and to recognize, as we heard in the song, that we don't always know, even about ourselves. We don't always know, right? And that we look at ourselves and we say, it seems like I still don't completely believe, but I'm not sure. It just kind of seems that way. And I believe, but I don't completely believe. And we can, as he does in the song, we can fill in different endings to that sentence. You know, what is it that it seems like I don't completely believe? And Adain, yet. What do I not yet completely believe about myself? What do I not yet completely believe about God? What do I not yet completely believe about the world? And that this is a time, you know, particularly for those of us who have Sukkot to sit and to spend time in the stillness of a space that is both outdoors and indoors, to sit with those questions and to be present with the doubts that are hallmarks of our growth as people. So I thank you all for sharing your thoughts, for sharing your insights. We're going to turn now to back to our Sidurim, to the prayer for our country, and I'm going to